So far we figured out that you can actually take a triad and you can flip a triad. And as a result of flipping the triad, you can revert back to the root position. And we've talked about the difference between root notes and base notes. But there is basically a naming convention associated with how you describe these inversions. Another thing that we're going to talk about are chord progressions. There are certain progressions that have names. So like, for instance, if you're going from the one chord to the 5 chord, there's a name for that. It's such a common occurrence that people describe things, describe that. So you can kind of envision individual chords as being snapshots, and then chord progressions are being movies. It's like a picture is an individual chord, and then a movie is like a progression of chords. So it's useful to think about chords in the context of other chords. That's where it's really exciting. It's like a story. Like you have a chord might be one character or one event, but the story is the entire composite of chords. So that's something worth talking about as well. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about there. The other thing I also brought up is on the dictation, I tried to give you some hints for the questions. So for instance, the first interval is a perfect fourth. So I kind of gave that to you. You kind of have to calculate that. I kind of ask you a question like, is this measure a repeat of the previous measure? So that might give you a hint as to the content. Like in other words, listen for this measure, compare it to the first measure, and see if you notice a pattern. What that says is if it truly is a repeat of the first measure, if you get the first measure right, you get the second measure right. If that's the case, I'm not saying it is or not. If you get this interval right, you'll get this interval right here. I mean, provided it's a repeat of the previous measure. If you do get this measure wrong, though, this measure will be wrong. So keep that in mind. Interval down, interval up. So there's sort of an upward progression here, a downward. There's a downward progression here, an upward progression here, and there's a turn here. List another tune that's a characteristic of perfect fifth ascending and perfect fifth descending. Challenge yourself to come up with a different tune that you haven't come up with before. And I might actually change this to be a different interval, but really, if you finish this homework assignment quickly, I won't dock you if you think of it of assignment, or I won't not give you extra credit if you come up with a tune that's a perfect fifth ascending or descending. Yeah, so it's basically more of the same sort of stuff. It's cumulative. You're building off previous concepts. So, and yeah, so good luck on that. And yeah, as you know, the performance quiz is due tomorrow. So make sure that you're staying on top of that. You're doing all the things that are associated with the performance quiz, where you're singing, you're recording yourself. Remember, 3 separate recordings, or you could consolidate them if you'd like. Yeah, it's just a pass if you complete all the 3 activities, and it's incomplete if you don't. And you can always retake it if you don't complete the activities. But it's pretty. The idea is do your best, and then the TA will give you feedback on how you did regarding intonation or regarding whatever you'd like them to talk about as well. So just do the best you can. And yeah, with that being said, why don't we wake up with some music. So I'm going to open up my PDF application here. And I'm going to pull up this Eyes and Ears anthology. And what I'm going to do, okay. Okay. So these melodies are containing steps. If they're only containing steps, then our good game, Alphabet Soup, comes to the rescue. Because if you're only thinking of steps, then it's actually pretty straightforward to just think of notes in order, right? So we can be in a situation where we go, it's all stepwise, right? We're using solfege here, which is what we'll end up doing when we actually do the exercise. But if you have do and you're encountering a melody that only has steps, you can expect to encounter re, mi, fa in that order, right? Or so, fa, mi in that order. So, fa, mi. With that being said, let's figure out what key we're in. Otherwise, we can't have any good idea for what do is. So, what key are we in? 1 sharp.
G major.
G major. Okay, so we're in the key of G major, and which means that this note is what, alphabetically speaking? It's a G, right? So alphabetically speaking, it's a G, which means that solfege speaking, what note are we dealing with?
Do.
Do. Okay, let's do this. You know what? Let me grab a microphone. Okay, let me change my input to be Studio Live. Testing. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, you can hear this piano playing?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so do to start with. Do, it's a G, do. Okay, so let's fill these out. We have do, what's next?
Re.
Right.
Do. Ti. La. So.
La. So.
Fa.
Fa.
Mi. Fa. So. Fa.
Scroll.
Mi.
Oh, I can't actually see what's next. Okay, there we go. Fa. Mi.
Mi. Re.
Okay. Let's see. I actually have to. Re.
Re.
Do.
Do.
Ti.
Ti.
Do.
Do. Do. Very good. Do. Okay. So as I told you, we're dealing with a stepwise melody, and hopefully you picked that up as you were figuring this out along with me. And okay, so we're dealing with this. Let me actually move your Zoom window so that I can process everything at once. Okay. Okay, do, do. Okay, so I want you to sing along with me. I know it's early, trust me. Last night was a rough one for me. So I know it's early, but what better way to wake up and to embrace the day than through song? So I encourage you to join along and to sing and to move those lips in an exaggerated fashion. Well, just move your lips, just sing. It's morning time. Pretend I'm a background CD. Okay, ready? Do. Okay, this is a pickup measure. So we have 3 beats in this measure, 3 quarter note beats, and this is going to come in on the end of 3. So it's the end of 3. 1, 2, do, 1, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, 3, and 1, and 2E, and 3, and 1, and 2E, and 3, and 1, and 2E, and 3. This is one that definitely helps to do the rhythm beforehand. So everyone join me one more time. 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. This one is great. If you get the rhythm on the first one, you get the rhythm on the second one. It's not good because if you don't get the rhythm on the first one, you don't get the rhythm on the second one. But it's an opportunity to practice. And notice how when I'm saying these beats that are active, I'm actually voicing them. And when they're not active, I'm whispering them. So 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, right? I'm whispering the inside beats so that I can kind of keep the time. Silences are difficult to keep track of. So I like keeping the time during the silences just so that I have a sense for how much time has passed. I think I might have told you this before, but you know, there's two things that are very difficult to do in music. One of the things is to play extremely fast, and the other thing is to play extremely slow, right? If I asked you to play Flight of the Bumblebee, it's a very fast song, right? Fast piece. You would struggle. Anyone would struggle, right? But if I also asked you to be extremely slow, like just count every 15 days without a clock and you are on an island, it would be difficult to know exactly how long 15 days have passed when 15 days have passed, right? That's a unit of time. It's an extremely slow unit of time, but it's a unit of time regardless. So if I were to try to keep track of 15 days, what could I do? Well, I could keep track of the hours. I could keep track of the seconds. I could keep track of the days. I wouldn't just be like, I'm just gonna ballpark it. I'm gonna wing it. It's been 15 days. I just feel it. It's in my gut, right? You'd have to develop it. You know, that's why we have clocks, right? You keep looking at the sky. All kinds of things, right? So with that being said, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and always reverts to counting your rhythms. My goodness, what a way to start the day. I tell you, when I looked at this, I was like, this is more work than my brain wants to do now, but it paid off. It's the joy of music. So 1 and 2 and 3. Do, re, do, ti, la, fa, fa, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do, ti, do. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Do, re, do, ti, la, fa, fa, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do, ti, do. Do, re, do, ti, 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 ti. I messed up the T on the way down. Actually, I played a T instead of a T. Okay, let's do this one, a nice counting up exercise. What key? Oh, by the way, this exercise has 1 sharp. This exercise has 2 sharps. This exercise has 3 sharps. This exercise has 4 sharps. So I think they're trying to get us to catch a pattern here. So if this exercise is in the key of G major, what key is this exercise in?
D major.
D major. And then how about this exercise?
A major.
A major. Which major? A major. Okay, great. How about this exercise?
E major.
E major. Okay, great. And this is assuming they're major keys. Now let's just play a game. I know this is probably not the most fun game, but it's a game nonetheless. We're going to figure out the relative minor for this key D major. So what's the relative minor? You have to go down a minor third, right? It's a minor third below D.
B.
B minor, right? Okay. And then what's a minor third below A major? Or a minor third below A? Minor third below A. Well,
F sharp.
F sharp. Absolutely. Okay. So a minor third below E. E. Alphabetically speaking, it would be some sort of C, right? Some variant of C. E, D, C, 1, 2, 3, right? So then you have to check the quality. C to E would be a major third.
C sharp.
C sharp, exactly. So we're dealing with these particular keys, possibilities. Now, if we were to try to see if this was D major or B minor, well, one of the things we can do is we can check the first note of the song. The first note of the song is, well, what clef is this? If you thought this was treble clef, you might say, this is B. This is B minor. No, this is bass clef. So it's actually what note? Good. Burritos don't. D. And then what about this one right here?
Also D.
D, okay. Excellent. So this is D. So you see a D here and a D here. So obviously this piece is in B minor. No, I'm just kidding. It's in D major. Right? So, I mean, those are two giveaways. And then I guess like it would be awfully suspicious for a piece to not be in D major when the first and last note of the piece are in D. I can make up a piece that doesn't do that. That time I'm actually psyching you out. That is actually in B minor. But for the sake of the exercises that they're going to give you, and for the sake of the exercises that I'm going to give you, you know, there is a high preponderance. The fact that D is more preponderant than B. Preponderant means more common. I learned that when someone was teaching me blackjack, and the preponderance of tens is the way you play blackjack. The face cards. Anyway, that's all to say that if you weren't a gambling man and you're trying to figure out what key to apply to a particular exercise, you would say that the beginning and ending note would be the best indicator for conforming to that key. So let's see. Let's try this one right here, A major. It would be, first note is A, last note is A. Now another giveaway for whether something is in a major or relative minor is just the harmony. So we're going to talk about chord progressions today. That exercise, that song I made up, one giveaway that's B minor is because the chord itself that I was playing is a B minor chord. It's like a B minor open position chord. Right? So there's more giveaways than just the melody. You could also look at the harmony as well. And you can hear the harmony and you can kind of get a sense. But for what we're given here, we're just given melody. So anyway, it just goes to show with music theory, there are no hard and fast rules. It's all, you just have to analyze it and figure things out. Everyone's always trying to break the rules. It's a great way to come up with new stuff. You know, for instance, just now I'm like, you could think of new things. Everyone wants to come up with the new thing. So as a result, these rules are constantly broken, but they serve a solid foundation. So if we're in the key of E major or C sharp major, I think I might have did this totally. Geez, already allowed me. No, this is, we got the key right. So the first note is neither E nor C sharp, right? It's B. The last note is E, okay? So here, we're going to talk about this important function called the dominant function today. And this is a very important function. It's this idea that notes like to resolve a fifth below them. Chords like to resolve a fifth below them. It's just like one of those fundamental gravitational attractions, tonal attractions in the musical universe. And I guess by extension, because of the fact that music is integrated with the fabric of the physical universe, it's part of the physical universe as well, this dominant function. If you think about the harmonic series, for instance, it's just a dominant chord. We won't get into that, but yet, if we might eventually, but it's this is all to say that this B and E can be thought of as sort of a related collection of pitches. So this confirms to me that we're actually in the key of E major. If I saw a C sharp and a G sharp, that would be a fifth relationship between C sharp and G sharp, and I would get that we're in C sharp minor, but I see this B. So let's do this exercise. I like it because it looks challenging rhythmically. And take a swig of, give me one moment. Just process this exercise for a second. Think about the actual subdivisions. I'll be right back. Okay. 6-8. Now, we haven't talked about this yet. This is actually an opportunity to talk about the first thing that's on the OneNote. When people open the OneNote, this is the first thing that people see. Food. I'm hungry. No, not food. The first thing that people see when they open the OneNote for the first time is this exercise called, it's this thing I typed up called simple versus compound meters. And so we're in the time signature of 6-8, okay? So when we're in 6-8, I want to backtrack for a second. And I know this might be a review for some people, but I want to talk about it anyway. There are different types of meters that we can use, I guess. Meters being time signatures, right? You could see a 4 in the numerator, a 3 in the numerator, a 2 in the numerator. Or you could see multiples of 4, 3, and 2. More specifically, you can see 4 multiplied by 3, 3 multiplied by 3, 2 multiplied by 3. Okay? These are common, right? These are the ones that you're expecting to see. And they all have their own way of grouping beats, okay? We'll definitely talk about this again, but to start out with, let's talk about this meter called simple quadruple meter, okay? Simple quadruple meter. Well, why is it quadruple? Can someone come up with a reason why it would be quadruple meter? Based on the number that's circled?
There's 4 beats in it.
Exactly. So that right there, quadruple makes sense. Now simple, you might think, well, it's not simple. Why is it simple? We'll get to why it's simple. So this is quadruple. Now, let's look at the one below it. I'm also claiming that this is a quadruple meter. Why would this be quadruple? Like what? There's nothing in the time signature. Is there anything that I drew here that would suggest that this is quadruple?
There's like 4 sections or 4 groups.
There's 4 groups, exactly. There's 4 groups. And so that's, and the arrows are there to indicate that there's 4 of something, right? And there's 4 big, oh yeah, I actually explained this down here. So, but I'll go about it anyway. So there's 4 big beats here. There's still 4, there's 4 here and there's 4 here, okay? So they're both quadruple. Let's take a look at the triples, right? You see 3 big beats here, it corresponds with 3 right here. And then let's look at this one right here. This also, you see 3 groupings of 3 things, right? But the bigger groupings are of 3. There's 3 of these bigger groupings, right? Right? So on this one, it might be obvious that this is a triple by the fact that the time signature says 3. On this one, it might be obvious based on the grouping of how you see the things grouped. You see 3 beaming groups, right? Okay. Now let's look at duple. Duple. You might not be familiar with that word. Duple refers to duple. Duple. So we have 2 beats here. Okay. It's kind of like we have 2 beats here. And now we have 2 beaming groups here. This is duple. Duple, duple. Triple, triple. Quadruple, quadruple, right? Everyone following along so far? Hopefully.
What for the compound duple meter on the bottom? Couldn't that also be a triple if you look at it as like 2 quarter notes, 3 groups of 2 quarter notes?
That's a great question. That's a really, I actually have a you know what? I don't know if I've actually, I actually have a document up here about that. So we'll get to that. That's a really fantastic question you asked. And that really, yeah, that's the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. And that actually gets to if you can understand that, that actually gets to the heart of why we have these compound versus simple meters in the first place. So that's kind of a knowledge checkpoint. So just to kind of start from the beginning, these simple meters, they all have, they're expressed in ways where the beats are shown by the numerator in the time signature. And these are the beats, these are the beats in the measure. You can kind of think of them as the big beats in the measure. You won't always see music expressed this way, where you just have 3/4 note beats, but you'll see music organized in a way where you'll have 3 beats, and maybe you'll see 2/8 notes here, a 1/4 note here, and 2/8 notes here, and you'll see that there's 3 events happening, right? That's like what you'll normally see. Like for instance, let me draw something out. I'll be very surprised if my Sibelius is still will still work. Sure. Let's see. 1 second. Oh, wow. Can you hear that? Wow, that's amazing. Okay. The reason I say that's amazing is because I've got so much music software open, and usually they compete with each other in Zoom, and wow, it's amazing. So, for instance, if we're in 3/4, you might find something like, whoops. Right? You still see, like, this is not how all the music will look like, but like the majority of the music might have features where you can kind of clearly see that there's 3 events per measure, kind of grouped that way, right? This all like belongs to the first beat. This belongs to the second beat. This belongs to the third beat. You might have stuff like this too, right? That's fine. But really, you can kind of think of that as like, this is another way you can represent that, right? You're still feeling it in 3 beats per measure. As you're counting along, you're like 1, 2, 3, 1 E and 1 E to do 1 E and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Simple quadruple meter. It's the same thing except in 4, right? Not the same melody, but we might be in a situation where you have something like this, and you might be something like right? Mozart da 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 bum ba-dum ba-da ba-da ba-dum 1 2 that. I'm not actually sure if this is Mozart, the way Mozart wrote this. So, but you can kind of imagine 1 2 3. I'm going to think of another example. Here's one. Right? Da 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 da. Right? As you're counting along, try to do this. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 or 1 2 3 4 1. Now try to count in 3. It's almost impossible. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. It's really hard to do. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 and 3 1 2 3. I'm probably doing it wrong. It just doesn't feel natural, right? It feels like you're kind of going against the current. It's like you're petting your cat the wrong way. It's like it's just there's some sort of riff, right? And you want to basically be, it doesn't agree with the music. The accents of the music correspond to beat 1. So it's like 1 2 3 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, right? There's an agreement between the meter and the music. Like, it's meant to coincide to make your life easier, right? So that's one of the ideas behind the music, the meter. Like what I'm getting at is you're not going to always see the music exactly organized, where you have something that's where the music exactly explicitly agrees with the meter in the most obvious way, like it does here, where it's like, oh, there's 4 beats. Oh, it's 4 4. And oh, look, the first beat is accented and the third beat's not accented. This is the most ideal case. The most synchronous way, this is the most synchronous type of music you can find that would agree with this meter. But you'll find music that still agrees with this meter that isn't so constrained to being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like measures like this. It still feels good to count this in 4, right? Now, when we get to duple meter, it just feels good to count the music in 2, like 1, right? So there's certain situations where it feels good to count it that way, right? Now, with compound meters, it actually feels good to count it in the way, in terms of the big beats that are specified by the simple variants of these meters. So if we have something like this. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 3. Sorry, I can't do it and count at the same time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? You can actually think of, like, I'm trying to play something in 12/8. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I'm thinking of the same chord for the entire first measure, and I'm changing chords on the second measure. So I'm kind of thinking of this as 12/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Another way I can think about it is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That time I could conceivably express this in compound quadruple meter. And I think that would make sense to express this in 12/8. You might be asking, why can't I just express that as 4 measures of 3, 4? Why can't I do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Why can't I do that? You can do that. But in some ways, you could choose to organize things in 3, or you can choose to organize things in more of a macroscopic manner, where it still feels like there are 4 groupings of 3, and you're kind of relating the first, there's an organization where there's 4 groupings of 3, instead of just, it's more myopic to think about it as individual, one grouping of 3. So let me actually pull up an example of something like 12/8 music. Okay. So, for instance, you probably know this piece. Right? Right. So there's this idea. You could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But look at this. What do you notice about every 12? What happens in the left hand? 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Change. 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. This is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, right? There's this idea that, sure, I could organize this in 1, 2, 3, but there's actually a macroscopic way of organizing this, right? In 4 groupings of 3. So instead of thinking about this as 1 grouping of 3, I'm actually thinking about this as 4 groupings of 3, right? And so right here, oh gosh, transfer this into the OneNote so you can see this. This is a classic example of 12/8. Okay, so on 12/8, I'm just going to bring up the Moonlight Sonata here, right? Harmonically speaking, you see that there are 4 groupings of 3. You could, once again, you could separate this into 4 measures of 3/4, but it's easier to read like this. Like if I saw this as one measure individual of 3/4, I would it would throw me off. I would see a bar line I would see 4 times the number of bar lines, and I'd have no idea of the pacing. I'd be like how long am I supposed to hold this chord? You know what I mean? So it's a different choice, but it just makes sense to use in certain situations. So similarly, the same thing can apply for 9/8 and 6/8. So you know what? I have an example for 6/8, but let me just look up an example of 9/8 music. I'm sure I'll recognize something eventually. Famous 9/8 music. Let's see. Joy. Oh, okay. Ah, there we go. One second. Classic Bach piece. 9/8. You know this piece, right? I'll play it. Whoops. So it feels like 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. I could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But doesn't it feel like it's organized in 3? It kind of feels like that, doesn't it? 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. Ah, gosh, I have to learn how to count. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? We're going to get to more as to why this is the case, because harmonically speaking, there are certain things that happen that make you feel as though certain measures are more like certain points, certain. Here's another thing about this: certain beats are more important than other beats. So that's another thing, right? So in compound meter, I want you to notice something. Actually, notice how I notice these little symbols up here, and even on the simple meters. This marking right here is an accent marking. It means that this beat is supposed to be accented, and that this beat is supposed to be a secondary accent. So, like for instance, less, more, less, a little more, a little less, right? So there's an idea, right? Same here, same thing. More, less, more, less. More, less. In this case, this one is the most important accent. This position in the measure, for both simple and compound, is the most significant part of the measure. It's where most of the action, it's where the most significant events occur. So if we're looking at the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata, which is in 9/8, oh, we're not looking, but if we were looking at that, now we are. Notice how something significant happens. When is the most significant thing that, what, in the left hand, when do things actually occur? Do they happen on beat 3? When do they happen?
On beat 1.
First beat.
The first beat, right? So they happen on the first beat. Harmonically, the events change on the first beat. So it gives you a sense for the structure. Like it reinforces this notion that there is the patterning of 12. The patterning of 12 is more significant than the patterning of 3, and that you can derive these higher order structures, right? So, long story short, a compound meter is just the same thing as a simple meter, except it's the 4 beats, the numerator is just subdivided in 3. That's all it is. So if you have a simple quadruple meter, it's 4, 4. If you have a compound quadruple meter, it's whatever this is multiplied by 3. It's 12, 8. If you have a simple triple meter, it's 3, 4. If you have a compound triple meter, it's whatever this is multiplied by 3. So it becomes a compound triple meter. And with a simple duple meter, it's 2. Compound duple meter, it's just this multiplied by 3, which is 6, 8, right? So if you look at this time signature, you should get a sense for what it is. Just by looking at it, you can think about it as, if I divide this by 3, will I get something that I know? Like, will I get a simple meter? So if I give you 9, 8, what's 9 divided by 3? 3. So so we have 3, right? So that means we know that that's a simple meter, which means that we can deduce that this is a compound triple meter. There's no meters where we multiply by 5 or multiply by 6. Like, you won't find like 28, or you do actually in more advanced music, but these are the ones that are more standardized and that you'll find canonically in the music that you study. Simple versus compound, quadruple, triple, duple. We'll talk more about this, but we do have other stuff to talk about. But I want to talk about the 6/8 versus 3/4 in a second. So someone asked about 6/8 versus 3/4. Like, why can't you express something like 6/8 and 3/4? Notice how there's the same amount of time in both measures, right? Like, the groupings are different, but the time amount is the same, right? You could like conceivably write this like this, right? And you see that now I've written, this is exactly the same thing as this. So you see that, right? I just tied this and I tied this and I tied this, right? Right? Except this is really hard to read. Think about this music. Right? That feels like 3/4. Now try to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? It feels like it's in 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You could conceivably do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. 3/4s can sometimes be thought of as 6/8, but 6/8s just don't. And 6/8s can also be thought of as 3/4 sometimes. But to me, when you see this pa 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 pa, it's clearly like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, right? There's a little bit of gray area. You could, of course, voice it the other way, but let's try. Let's look at this measure of 6/8. You see 2 groupings of 3. Notice how the groupings are just different, right? There's 3 groupings here, whereas there's 2 groupings here, just by looking at the beaming. I just remembered another famous 9/8 one. I can't believe I forgot it. For Elise, right? But this is a bar of 6/8, and this is the same bar represented in 2. But if I have something like this, right? Let me think of another example. And by think, let me look it up. Famous 6/8 music. Johnny Works on the Hammer, of course. I don't know that one. I think, I know I had one. I'm totally blanking on it right now. The Beatles, Norwegian Wood. Oh, okay. This is the Norwegian wood. Doesn't feel like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. It feels like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? Anyway, it would be strange. It would be da 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 da. Oh, this is a classic one. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot. House of the Rising Sun. Right, how does it feel to count this, right? Do you want to go 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Or do you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I would argue that this feels much more. You wouldn't play the song like this. It disrupts the flow. Now it becomes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's this idea that the phrase itself is 6 beats long. 2, 4, 5, 6. You catch what I'm saying? And it's separate. It's down the middle, right? First half, second half. First half, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? So that's a good example, I think. 6/8, I will put House of the Rising Sun. I'll get the music eventually. We'll definitely come back to this. Does anyone have any questions about this? We'll definitely talk more about this. I just wanted to explain this at some point, and I guess I explained it today. So looking back at our good old example, which precipitated this whole thing, this is at 6/8, and notice how the beamings are. Notice how there are beamings in terms of, there's 2 beamings per measure. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or instead of saying 1 and 2 and 3 and, what I would say is 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and I guess you can call this. Normally, this is already the but in this case, you could just say and 1 and 2 and okay, right? Okay, let me talk about the other thing. Any questions about this? Okay, let's talk about naming inversions. So what we talked about last time is basically the fact that there's a difference between a bass note and a root note, and how the bass note is the lowest note in the chord and it determines the inversion, whereas the root note defines the scale degree of the chord, and in that sense, it's the foundational note of the chord, right? So when I say foundational note, when I'm hearing a chord, I kind of want to hear the root note of a chord. If someone plays me a chord, I want to know that the root is da. I don't care if they play it in this inversion or this inversion. I want to know that this root is da. It's the scale degree that that defines the chord, and as such, it's like my mind, in order to prioritize what I want to figure out first, I figure out the root of the chord. Like I try to get a sense for that tonality, because each chord is its own little universe. And if you have an idea for that, the root of that chord, you have a great way of identifying the chord and figuring out how the basis for that chord, essentially, the root position version of that chord, and then you can analyze or intuit these other inversions as a result of that kind of foundational outlook of that chord. So So remember, there's this difference between a base note and a root note. So last time we looked at, we created some documents that kind of describe this a little bit, right? We have this, did I close that doc? Gosh. There's this document that I wanted to have, oh, sorry. I think I closed the one document I wanted to keep open. So let me go to my recent. Okay. It's colored inversions. Sure. I guess it's already open. Gosh, just my luck. Okay, right? Okay, so right. You can see how the base notes are in blue and the root notes are in red. And sometimes they coincide. They coincide when we're in what position?
Root.
Root position, exactly. Oftentimes the root note and the base note are at odds with each other or at evens with each other. No. Yeah, they are not always in sync, but that's okay. You could still figure out the inversion, right? Now here's the thing. What do you call this first inversion chord, right? Remember, if you're trying to figure out inversions, you have to compare the base note of the chord you're trying to analyze against its position in the root position chord. Okay. So I think a long time ago I made a really long acronym because it's like really like a compare base note against position in root position chord or something. I don't think I ever made this one, but this sounds like a distinguished organization. Sibana Perk, right? Compare the base note against its position in the root position chord. So what I mean by that is you see this chord right here, where the root position chord, this is if I flip this, you'll see that this is actually the root position version of the chord, right? So what I want you to do is compare the base note against its position in the root position version of that chord. So what slot would it occupy if this chord were in root position? Would this occupy the first note or the second note or the third note? Second note, right? Which means if it's the second note, it's going to be first inversion, right? That means you flipped the root position chord, you flipped the root position chord once to get to result to this chord, right? That's one way of thinking about it, right? So there's a name for all of these, and the name for it is 6-3. Why is it, and there's actually an abbreviation. I'll get to that abbreviation. Why is it 6-3? Let's actually look at this one. I'll call this 5-3. This is like the most explicit way to describe this chord. There's a Roman numeral and there's an Arabic set of numerals. That the Arabic set of numerals describe the intervallic structure of the chord, the voicing essentially. The Roman numerals describe the scale degree, okay, of the root. So what does this 5-3 mean? Well, if we're here, what is the outside interval? The outside
perfect fifth.
Perfect fifth. So that's what this 5 refers to. Okay. If we're here and we're looking at this to the inside interval, what is this interval?
Major third.
Major third. And that's what this 3 refers to. So what it means, the outside interval is 5, and the inside interval is 3. So when you see a figured bass thing that looks like this with a 5 and a 3, we're referring to a root position voicing of the chord. When I say voicing, I mean I shouldn't say voicing. I should say the root position inversion of the chord, okay? If I'm looking at this and I see 6-3, why is it 6-3? Same logic as before, right? What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We don't even need to know the exact precise interval qualities here. We just need to know the numerical interval without the qualitative prefix. It's always, it's good to know both, but for the sake of identifying the inversion using figured, they call this figured base. It's useful to just think about the interval. So you have 6 here, which corresponds to the 6. And then we have a 3 here, which corresponds to this third. Okay? Are you guys following along so far? Because we figured all these inversions out last time. We're just putting a name to it this time, right? So now we have basically another situation. We have second inversion. So second inversion, basically, remember, let's think about what we just this clever, almost sounds like a business conference. Compare base note, or maybe I should call it something else. Find base note in root position chord. That sounds like a bank or something. So we want to find the base note in the root position chord. Okay, can even add this to make it sound even more fancy. Find base note in the root position version of the chord. So what do I mean by that? I've got this voicing right here. It's important to know the base to find the. It's important to find the root position version of the chord anyway, right? No, my dog is crying for my attention. Sorry, I just really want to pet my dog. Okay, so anyway, we have this voicing right here. Hey, shh, sorry about this, guys. You got it. Shh, shh. No, she doesn't like being chastised. She feels really sad. So sorry, you didn't do anything wrong. Just chill out. Sorry. It's tough. It's tough putting your foot down. Okay. Sorry, Jane. I really want to pet you. I can't do it right now. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay. It's painful. I can't do it. Oh my gosh. All right. Hey. Here, get down. You're good girl. Get down. Good girl. Okay. What am I supposed to do? This is why I can't get any work done. All right. So anyway, we have this this chord, and we're going to compare it against the root position version of that chord. And actually, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, you know what? Sorry, let me do this. This is actually cool. I just realized I can do this. Okay. I want to flip this to the root position version of the chord. This is perfect, right? Because the colors are retained and everything. So this is what this whole business sounding abbreviation is referring to. When I put this voicing in root position, which position of the root position chord does this note exist in? It's in this position, right? Right? If I flip it, you can see that, right? So this is the chord we're trying to analyze, and this is the root position version of that chord. Now the root position version of the chord tells you, well, one of the things it tells you is the root, right? Which is important for telling us the scale degree. So we're in the key of A major in all these exercises. So if we're in A major, this chord right here, we figured out the Roman numeral. But now we have to figure out the Arabic numerals, okay? And the Arabic numerals can be determined from the base note. So using the red note, we figured out what we needed to know about the scale degree. Now using the blue note, we've got to figure out what we need to know about the inversion. So the blue note occupies the second position of the root position variant, right? Which means that we are in, this is the first position, this is second position, this is root position, so this means we're in second inversion, right? Okay.
that's one way you could do it. You could do that, and then you could memorize that second inversion is 6-4. Or you could just look at the voicing you have here, and you could look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 4. You might say, well, why would I ever do this? Like, why would I ever flip this and like do all this extra work when I can just look at the intervals right here and see what I'm working with, right? I'm remembering why I made this acronym, or why I wrote it down. It's a statement that this is easy to see when it's in closed position, but when it's an open position, it's not so easy to see these intervals. I would still call this exact figured base, because I have to basically Roman numeral this Roman numeral analysis where you have a Roman numeral and Arabic numeral, they're assuming you're in closed position. It doesn't tell you anything about position. It only tells you about inversion and scale degree. So there's, I guess, 3 things you can talk about when describing a chord. I should put this somewhere. Describing a chord. Okay, one of the things you can do is you could describe the Roman numeral. Well, you can describe the scale degree of chord, right? And that's given by the Roman numeral. You could describe the inversion of the chord, and that is given by the Arabic numerals, or actually, I guess, figured base is what they call it, which is the Arabic numerals. And then the third thing you can do is you can describe it. You can describe the voicing, open or closed. Now, here's the thing. When we're actually using Roman numeral analysis, these 2 things right here encapsulate Roman numeral analysis. So Roman numeral analysis is concerned with these 2 things. Okay. So if we're thinking about Roman numeral analysis, for instance, this is what we're dealing with. So if I bring this chord out into view, and I bring this out, right? Look at this. I put this over here. Roman numeral analysis. Take this, right? Okay. Roman numeral analysis is pertaining to this. So let me actually expand on this a little bit more, right? Okay. Inversion. It's going to look really messy for a second, guys, and then it'll clean up. Promise. Okay. Okay. So the Roman numeral is pertaining to this idea. Arabic numeral is pertaining to this. Make this like that, right? And then the Roman numeral is pertaining to this. Now notice how there's nothing about voicings. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I have to. My Venn diagram is incorrect right now. Here we go. Right. So Roman numeral analysis. Oh, analysis. Roman numeral analysis pertains to this idea of scale degrees and inversions. It doesn't tell you anything about voicings. Okay. So that's why this whole process of this abbreviation, where you want to find the bass note, like this process that we just did, hopefully it makes sense just by looking at it, finding the position of the bass note in the root position version of that chord. Root position. Okay. Finding bass note in, finding bass note in root position voicing of that chord. That will tell you inversion. Okay, so I know that's a lot of gobbledygook, but at some point we're going to talk more about this when we get to open position chords. It's going to become really, really important because chords are not always going to be that easy to analyze. So basically what this means is find base note in the root position version, position version of the chord. Beneath root fucker. It's like a, not, there are some languages that have words like this. Like I have a friend who's studying in Prague right now, and there's just lots of consonants, consecutive consonants, like words like this. That are very difficult. Kurzsprung, or right? So in some language, they might, in Prague, they might say, oh, this is an easy word to say. What are you talking about? That's easy to say. So with that being said, what we're getting at here, I want to say one more thing about inversions and chords, right? Because right now our lives are actually a little easy. For the sake of your homework, you're going to find it's a piece of cake. You're going to be like, I don't need to know this FBNI, RPVOC stuff. Like, I don't need to know that. You will eventually. That's why I'm telling you about it. And it does help. Right now, you're just given closed position chords, but you're going to get open position chords eventually. So with that being said, just to summarize, the Roman numeral is what it looks like. It's the Roman numeral. And that tells you the scale degree of the chord. The Arabic numerals tell you the inversion of the chord. And in order to find the Arabic numerals, you basically have to just think about the intervallic structure of the closed position chord. I guess that's another way you could do it. Instead of doing for open position chords, you could just find the closed position version of the chord and figure out the intervallic structure, and there you have it. Now here is another confusing detail. In books and in music theory references everywhere, you will often see this as represented as just, wait a second, as this. You won't see a 3. In books, you will often see the 5-3 is just represented as just nothing. The reason behind that, do I have a slide on this, on the OneNote? The reason behind this is this. So this is what I mean. This is the same thing, just shown here actually without any summary. So this might be a good opportunity to write about it. In figured bass, the 5th and 3rd are assumed. Okay. In other words, people often represent these chords, represent the Arabic numerals of these chords only if they differ with the assumption that there are 5ths and 3rds. It's sort of like a clever information theory thing. It's like trying to convey trying to convey this stuff with the least amount of information, which might be confusing, but you're like, what am I really saving by like trying to be so clever to like consolidate this into 1 digit instead of 2 digits? That's a good argument, but I guess here's where this comes into practice. So look at this, 5-3, right? The 5th and 3rd are assumed, so you don't have to include them, right? Here, 6-3, the 3, you kind of assume that the bottom one is a 3rd, so you just don't include it. Here, second inversion, you see a 6th on the outside and a 4th on the inside. Both of those differ with the assumption that there's a 5th and a 3rd, so you have to explicitly write out both of them. With that being said, am I going to penalize you if you write 5-3 or 6-3 or 6-4? Absolutely not. People also write this out using the longhand way all the time. But just so you're aware, if you're looking at a music theory transcript and you'll say, I've never encountered this 6, this stray 6, what does that mean? Just so you know, it actually is informationally, it's equivalent to having written it like this with a 6-3, right? It's making a lot of assumptions, but it's a clever way of conveying information in the most concise, compressed way possible. So hopefully, you know what? In fact, I've already explained this Arabic numeral thing. So let me rename this slide. Assumptions in figured base. Okay. And then here, I guess I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put triads of a chord here first. Right. And then there we go. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. Hopefully this makes sense, right? Any questions about this? I know it's be confusing. Okay. Feel free. Don't be a stranger. Just ask away. Anything about any concept whatsoever. It doesn't have it. As earlier, there's situations I can't tell you how many times I ask a question that I like immediately know that I already knew the answer to that. It just helps to practice answering questions you already even know the answer to. So, you know, like you can ask what's 1 + 1, and we can discuss that. That's actually significant in music, right? Because that's a second, and you can never practice seconds enough, right? So wait just a second if someone tells you otherwise. 1 + 1, that's a pretty deep thing to talk about. So figured bass. This is going to be part of your homework, right? If you look at your Google, if you look at the Google Drive and you look at the homework, I wrote this first example in the most simplified way, in the informationally concise way, from the standpoint that I could also have called this a 6 what?
A 6-3.
Exactly. I could have called that a 6-3. Okay. I've got 4 minutes. Man, we talked about a lot of stuff today. I guess there was more. The rhythm stuff ended up being a big conversation. There's one other thing that I haven't talked about that I want to talk more about next class. It's this whole harmonic function thing. And I'll kind of tease you with this, with a little bit of information, okay? So, you know, we talked about chords. We talked about scale degrees, right? Now, scale degrees also have names. So you can call the first scale degree by 1, or you can, in solfege, you can even call it do, right? You can call the second scale degree re, right? Etc. Right? You can call them by the numbers, often by little carets, right? So oftentimes, actually, to be more specific, scale degrees will have this little caret symbol right there. Right? Okay. And that refers to scale degrees. But the scale degrees also have names like tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading tone. Not like, it's literally those names. So with that being said, you can describe harmonic functions in multiple ways. You could say, oh, I went to a 5 chord to a 1 chord. Or you could say I was on the dominant chord and I went to the tonic chord. If I'm talking about the 5 chord, I can describe the 5 chord as the dominant chord, right? The dominant chord, it sounds like what it is. It's like the most common, other than the tonic, it's the most common chord that you'll encounter. It's the 5 chord. If you were to just harmonize using 2 chords, like, you know, people always give pop music a bad rap. They're like, oh man, pop music, it's only 3 chords. Well, really, most classical music's only 2 chords, right? It's the 5 chord and the 1 chord. I'll play Happy Birthday and I'll just use 2 chords. I could have thrown in a 3rd chord there too as well. There's a place I could have put it, but for the most part, it was convincing enough, right? It's probably someone's birthday today, statistically. So happy birthday to you. And with that being said, there's something about the dominant chord that just really wants to resolve to the tonic chord. Like, for instance, there's a funny anecdote. I'll repeat this anecdote because it's so funny. It just cracks me up. Rachmaninoff, great pianist. You probably heard his music. I heard his music, I instantly became in love. I just, my teacher played it and he said, hey, do you want to play this piece? And I said, yes, I do want to play this piece. And I started just listening to everything he ever wrote. And I was like, this is just incredible. But Rachmaninoff, his wife would wake him up by playing a dominant chord without resolving it to a tonic chord. So she would do something like this. And he would have to wake up and go. Right? It just feels like there's a gravity, right? These chord progressions have gravity. You really want the chords to progress in a certain way. And if you have a dominant chord, you really want it to go to the tonic chord. So there's this idea, I can play a bunch of things and you can just by not even knowing, I can make up something and I'll just play something and you can guess whether it sounds finished or unfinished. Does that sound finished? I'm guessing. No, it doesn't, right? If I was here, right? That sounds finished, or it sounds more finished. It's actually a type of cadence, right? So there's this idea that there's movement and these chords they don't just have, we've been spending so much time thinking about the relationship of notes within individual chords, right? We've been like, oh, how does the root relate to the bass note? And how does, but actually there's a super relationship, kind of like, 3/4 and 6/8. You can think about a measure of 3/4, you can think about two measures of 3/4 and 6/8, or not really great. That's not a great comparison because it's actually not the correct grouping of beats, but you can think about superstructures. So instead of thinking about one measure and thinking about one note and one chord, now we're thinking about groups of chords. It's just a logical follow-up. We're not thinking about words anymore, we're thinking about sentences, okay? So basically, if you want to get a head start on how to answer those two questions on your homework about cadences, just read this section on harmonic function. Authentic cadences, half cadences, plagal cadences. Basically, a half cadence is a 1 chord going to a 5 chord. Authentic cadence is 5 chord going to 1 chord. And a plagal cadence is a 4 chord going to a 1 chord. And that's basically all you need to know to answer the question. It's on the homework, but we will talk more about the implications of different songs that have this information. But anyway, we are over time, so I guess I will leave it there. If anyone has any questions, always happy to answer them. I forgot to have the chat open. Please pet her. I know. Oh my gosh, pet dog. It was difficult. That was rough. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, I'll stick around. Other than that, let's see. Otherwise, we will just continue next week.
Oh, yeah, Nakul, for the homework, the scale degrees part, should we write like 6/4 or like specify the inversions?
Yes. I guess for the first part, that's a good question. So like for the first part, I deliberately left them inversionless. So
Yeah.
So I mean, it's already technically that's informationally complete because you don't have to specify 5/3 because that's you can if you want, but it's equally correct to not include it. So, but on this part, you should include it. At least it's either the concise way or the more full fleshed out way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, for open position, do all the notes have to be away from each other or can there be notes that are touching? Because I'm kind of confused on that.
If they're in open position, okay, so let me just back up for a sec and let me pull up the chord. So meaning you understand this open position?
Yeah.
So open position, the way I like thinking about open position is that, let me actually put up the root position next. You know what, let me actually do this. Let me go to root position. So in open position, the notes are not next to each. Like you could fit other notes of the chord in between notes that are written. So for instance, like here and here, I could have fit this note in here, but I didn't. So that's what makes it open position. It's like not the most compact way you can represent it. Is that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. William, are you there? Okay, I think William's gone. I'm going to sign off, but send me an email if you want to talk.